This is a multi-port USB charger. It has universal 110 to 240 volt input voltage, and it has 6 USB ports. I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $34. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. Alright, so in the box you get this base here, and it has a cord, and this cord has a US AC plug on it, and the other end is kind of your standard figure 8 style appliance plug here. So it would be possible to purchase a different cord with a different plug. It is a universal voltage input. It says 110 to 240 volts AC. So the ports here are USB-C power delivery 1, and they have a second USB-C port that's power delivery 2, and it's shared with this quick charge 1 port, which is a USB-A port. And so if you plug something in both of these ports, they go down to just 5 volts at 3 amps. So if you want to use 2 different power delivery devices, you can't really use a quick charge port. If you want to use a quick charge port, you can't use a power delivery device. If you just need kind of 5 volts out of a USB-C cable, you can plug in cables to both of these. It'll just do 5 volts. These 3 ports here are 5 volts. They share 4 amps. So just any USB-A plug will go into that. So you do not receive any cables other than the AC power cable. That cable is about 4 feet long. Now you also come with these little plastic dividers, and they fit into these slots. So you just push to fit into the slots. So if you have a wide device, you can skip a slot and get something extra wide in, or if you have a narrow device, you can put them in every slot to charge multiple devices. And so this thing here is definitely sized for cell phones, maybe small tablets. A laptop would be too big. It would not be really easily held up by these tabs. Also, the total power on this can power a laptop out of your USB port 1. So this port here is a maximum of 20 volts at 2.25 amps. So it's about a 45 watt rate. So you can recharge a laptop with that power delivery 1 port. Now the power delivery 2 port only goes up to 12 volts at 1.67 amps. So some laptops might charge at 12 volts, but I'm thinking that's more for a cell phone or a tablet. Now if you have a phone that supports the quick charge standard, this port here does quick charge. It'll also do 5, 9, or 12 volts at up to 1.5 amps. And then these guys here, they're just plain standard USB-A ports. They'll do 5 volts at up to 4 amps shared between all 3 of those ports. So that's great for slow charging any smaller devices. Now I'm not sure how I feel about the power jack being on the same side as the ports. I might prefer it being on the rear, but you are going to have some cables coming out of here, so having one more cable coming out of there really isn't going to visually look all that weird. So there will be, some coiled cables on this side of the unit. And this is what it looks like with all 6 of those little plastic dividers installed. Alright, so we have 2 tablets, 2 power banks, and a phone all charging here. I have left the quick charge slot disconnected just so that the USB-C power delivery cables are running at full power. Alright, I have this cable plugged into the USB-C power delivery 1 port, which is rated at up to 45 watts. And it's negotiated 19.6 volts, 2.24 amps, is doing 43.7 watts. So it's getting pretty close to that 45. I just saw it hit 44 for just a second there. So it's doing pretty close to the 45 watt rate. Alright, so the USB-C power delivery 2 port is rated at 20 watts, and it is delivering 20 watts. Its specification says it does 5, 9, and 12 volts, but it actually stepped up to the 20 volt level here. Now it's only at 1 amp, but it is delivering those 20 watts at 20 volts. So to test these 3 USB-A ports that share 5 volts at 4 amps, I got out my little tester here. I've set to 4 amps, and it is delivering, it's 4.3, 4.5 volts at 4 amps, so it's giving, 18 watts out here. So the voltage is starting to sag a bit at the 4 amp rate. I'm going to turn it down until I get a nice clean, like at least 4.9 volts. All right, so there's 4.9 volts, and the draw there, all right, 4.9 volts, and the draw is 3.9 amps. So basically, at 4 amps, it starts to sag the voltage, but it definitely generates, 3.9 amps at 5 volts. All right, so this guy does a good job organizing and charging all the devices.